Hello. Welcome joining into the very last chapter of our MakeCode Arcade learning lessons. In the past 7 chapters, we have learned the basics on how to create game using MakeCode Arcade. So you learn all the technique. And today in chapter 8, we are going to learn the process on how to create a game from scratch. Alright, but first of all, do you have an idea of what you want to create? Yes? No? Okay, some of you might not have an idea yet. So if you don't have an idea, you can look around you and try to get some inspirations from the surrounding. For instance, it might be an object that you see or the people that you talk to. So there might be some story that you can get idea from, or even the events that happen around you. So that might be something you can utilize into your game. An example, I have seen games about COVID-19. So somebody created a game imagining that the player is a doctor and try to fight through the virus, and at the end they managed to get the vaccine. All right, so that's just an example. I have another example. Let me show you this. Do you recognize this little guy here? So this is my birthday present 2 years ago. I love it a lot. I keep it in my car all the time. So I have created a game or a character that based on him. Do you know which one? So this is the little dinosaur that you have in the console. So if you recall, in your console there is a little dinosaur game. So I call that Hungry Dino because I imagine that my little dinosaur loved to eat eggs, so I created a lot of eggs in the platform for him to collect. And of course, along the way, I can enhance the game by adding more characteristics to my dino. For instance, I can make him to shoot fire, to destroy the wall or any obstacles. Okay, so that's totally up to you to get inspiration from the objects that you have or the people around you. And of course, you can also get inspiration from the game that you play. Example, some Nintendo's game. And of course, don't compare your games. Our game might not be as fancy, as pretty as Nintendo, because Nintendo has an army of programmer. They also have a lot of graphic designer, sound engineer, etc. to help them to create a game. So for us, it's just by ourselves. We are the programmer. At the same time, we are also the sound engineer and then the graphic designer. But that's good because we are the boss of everything, so we can decide what we want in our game. So that doesn't mean that our game won't be as interesting as Nintendo. It's totally up to your creativity. And the good thing is we already have a MakeCode Arcades that allow us to start creating our game right away. So with that convenience, we can create any game based on the idea that we want. And at the end, if you manage to create a game, you can give yourself a pat on your shoulder because that makes you a programmer. But bear in mind, to create a game from your idea, it takes a lot of perseverance because it's not easy. You're gonna bump into a lot of challenge, a lot of hurdle, like there will be time that you do not know why your game doesn't work, there's a bug in your game, or there's time that you do not know how to build certain feature for your game. So you will get really frustrated when that happens. The tips is don't give up, just be strong and go online, go to the Microsoft MakeCode Arcade forum to look for the answer. Try to study other people's codes, how they create their games, and you can learn from their games. Like mine, I share my game online too, so you can go ahead and open up my game and see how I write certain features. And in the event, if you really have the issues that you're not sure how to fix, you can ask a question in the forum, or you can also leave a message for me. Alright, I will try to help you out with the problem that you're facing with your game. I think that's enough of a lecture, so let's go ahead and create our game today. We are going to create a game from scratch, from a piece of paper. So I draw the game that I want to create, and we are going to turn this idea into an actual game that we can download into our MakeCode Arcade console. Alright, let's get started. We know that there are a lot of video games in this world, and do you know that they can be categorized into different type or different genre? Before we start creating our game today, let me show you what are the different type of game we have out there. The first one I'm showing here is maze. So the entire game is played inside a maze. So you can have a goal for the player to escape or to find a destination or target inside the maze, or even to navigate through the maze within certain time limit. Then there's another category that's called platformer. So platformer, player has to navigate around the game by jumping, walking, swinging, or climbing around the game environment in order to reach a goal. Sometimes there might be obstacles, and that's the fun because you just have to maneuver through and then reach the destination or the goal. Then another category is called adventure. There's always a story when it comes to creating an adventure game. And you as a player normally plays the role of a main character or the protagonist inside the story. The game or the goal of the game is driven by exploring or solving the puzzle along the adventure. The key concept for adventure game is there's always a storytelling or narration throughout the game. Like this one here, The Legend of Zelda, when the Link, which is the main character, will have to explore around the map, and when he bumps into people, people will talk to him, and there will be a conversation. And you will discover more story as the game goes. So that's adventure category. Then another category is like puzzle. This is not just a jigsaw puzzle that we play. This includes problem-solving game that involves certain logics, pattern recognition, sequence solving, spatial recognition, and word completion. The one that I'm showing here is a puzzle bubble, which is to match a color to burst the bubbles before it fills up the entire screen. Okay, then other than that, we also have a racing category. In racing, player participates in a racing competition with any type of vehicle. In this case, it's a car. You can also have a water vehicle, air vehicle, or space vehicle. Then we also have sport category, where we bring our real-world sport into arcade game. And of course, this is your game, so you can change the rule if you want to. Then we also have shooting category. In shooting game, we can use many different type of firearms, and the goal is to defeat the opponents by aiming at them and destroy them with the ammo. And in this game that I'm showing here is Space Invaders, the very popular Space Invaders. Then the next category I have is strategy. So strategy game is often turn-based. You take turn to make a move. So different move will have different outcome. This game involves a lot of algorithm and decision tree. And one popular game example of strategy game is like a board game, like chess. And what I'm showing here on the screen is a war game from Command & Conquer. So what I'm showing here is not everything yet. There are still a lot of other categories out there. You can create a game based on this category, and if you have a game idea, by knowing what category does your game idea belong to can help you code your game easier. For example, if I'm creating a shooting game, but I do not know where to start, then I can refer to a similar example that is also a shooting game, and they might be available already in the MakeCode Arcade homepage or in the MakeCode Arcade forum. So we can take a look at them and learn from them. Alright, so these are some of the different type of games or category of games that we have. Next, let's take a look how we create game. There are a couple of steps that we always do when creating a game. The first thing we do is to conceptualize the idea we have, meaning we need to be able to explain what is our game about and write down our idea on a piece of paper. It can be a paper or any media as long as you lay out your idea before you start coding it. So for example, before we start coding, we need to know who is the player. You need to lay it out. Who is the player? What are the sprites? What can your sprites do? What is the goal of your game, and how do you want to score point, and etc. Then, from the list you lay out, you will need to identify what is the key elements that forms your game. Because we do not want to build the whole game directly, we want to start by building the basic thing first. So make sure the basic things are working first, then only we slowly add more elements or add more features to it. So in these steps, the first steps that we do to build the basic things is called prototype. So once we have our prototype built, we test run the game. We want to make sure what we expect it to do is behaving correctly. If it's not, then we will fix the bug and also any problem that we see. It's normal that the game might have a lot of bugs when you first build it. It's totally fine, which is why we always need to have this stage or this step to test the game and also to fix the bug. And then we will see if the game has any things to add on. Normally you're just doing the first prototype, so we will go back again to add more enhancement to it. So the basic thing is already working, so we will identify what are the extra elements or feature that we want to add to the game, and then we'll repeat the whole steps again. So then we will build the thing, and then we will test it, and then we will fix any issues that we find. And then after testing and fixing all the bugs, then we will need to check again, has our game meeting all our expectation. And also, other than checking yourself, you can also share the game with other people to collect feedback. You can get their input and see what do they feel about the game. Is there any other improvement that you can add to the game? Then you can go back to the build again to build them, and then test them, and then fix bugs, and also add any enhancement, and then go back to the build. So it's always a step at a time. You don't have to do all things, or you don't have to build every parts of the game in one shot. You can break them down into multiple rounds. And the first round, we build the prototype. The second round, you add more features. And then the third round, you add even more features. Okay? So that's the process of building. Alright. Let's get started to create a brand new game today. So what am I creating? I have this idea. Christmas is coming soon, so I want to create an adventure game that is related to Santa. So I started my game that the Santa is trapped inside a dungeon or a mountain. He's being captured by Krampus, so we need to save him before Christmas. Otherwise, our children will not have presents this year, so that's not good. So I draw this dungeon, and Santa is trapped at the bottom over here at the right hand side, and he needs to find his way out to meet with the Rudolph on the top of the mountain so that they can escape together. And along the way there will be a monster or Krampus that will attack him, so he needs to be extra careful. And one thing, I want to make my Santa to have a magic or superpower. So my Santa can go invisible. So the moment he go invisible, the Krampus will not be able to see him. But then the moment he started to move again, then the magic will be gone. Then the Krampus will see him. So he can only hide himself or go invisible when he's not moving. Okay, so the moment when he starts moving again, then the magic is gone. Then he need to quickly climb up the mountain before Krampus see him. Okay, so that's a very basic game. So let's try to conceptualize it by listing down this idea into wording so that we can build out this item. Alright, so how do we pencil down our idea into wording so that it can help us to decide what to build and how to build our game? We can ask ourselves a few questions. For example, we need to ask ourselves, who is the player in the game? And what does the player do? And what genre or what type of game is this? And what is the goal of our game? And what are the mini features or mini elements that you want to add to the game? And also, when does the game end? Okay, so by answering all these questions, we will eventually list out the items that we want to build. So let me try to do that for the game that I sketched out earlier on. Okay, the first question, who is the player? And we know that the player is a Santa himself because he was trapped by Krampus. And what does the player do? So Santa can walk, can climb, and he can apply magic. We want him to go invisible when he applies the magic. So what genre or type of game is this? It's like kind of story-based or adventure. You can explore the dungeon and then eventually it will get out of it. and maybe we can have more story after that, but now I can only think of one story, which is for him to explore the dungeon and get out of it to escape with Rudolph. And since my Santa can climb, can walk, so it's also kind of like a platformer game where you can have an environment or a ground of the dungeons as a platform, and then you go around that platform to escape out of it. So I'm gonna say both platformer and adventure. And what is the goal of the game? The goal of the game is to escape. So Santa needs to escape from the dungeon so that the kids will have presents during Christmas. And the next question, what are the mini features or elements of the game? So besides, I need to have my Santa to escape from the dungeon. Along the way, there will be a monster or Krampus that can attack or hurt my Santa, and my Santa need to avoid them. So I would say that there will be an army of Krampus that going around that can attack Santa, and every time the army touches my Santa, the life will reduce. And of course, Santa needs to avoid them or use the magic to go invisible. Okay, and next question, when does the game end? There are two types of ending, right? The one ending is you win the game. That's when Santa found the Rudolph and they both escape together. And another ending is a bad ending. You will lose the game when Santa killed by the Krampus after being hurt too many times. Alright, so this is an example of how I write down my idea into paper before I start coding. Okay, so you can utilize the same technique, list down these different items or list down these different elements that you want to have for your game on the paper first before you start coding. Alright, so now that I have all this game concept being written down, what do I do next? I'm gonna start building my prototype. So prototype means the basic items that we need to have in order for my game to function. So in order to build the prototype, we need to be able to identify what is the most important game elements or item that form your game. And that means we need to abandon all the fancy visual arts and effects and just go with the basic things. So it's like when you want to build a car, we need to build the basic things, and that is the car body itself, the car frame, and it needs to have 4 wheels, the car engine to move the car, as well as the pedal to accelerate and a brake to stop. So that's all you need to build a car. So at that point, you don't need any special thing like turbo, or you don't even need to decide what is the color of the car. So all these visual things or additional enhancement is not needed when we are building the prototype. So we need to be able to identify what is the important things that you will need in order to play the game. If you're not sure what are the important things to play the game, you can ask yourself this question: without this element, would it stop me from playing the game? Right, for example, if I have a Santa created already, but it doesn't look like Santa, it just looks like a normal stickman, I can still play the game. Right? It won't stop me from playing the game. But of course, having a Santa, cute looking Santa, it will enhance the game because your game look a lot cuter and is more relevant to the story that you're creating. But then again, without that, it won't stop you from playing the game because your game or your stickman can still move. Okay? So in our case, let's try to identify what is the important elements that we want to build as a prototype for the game. So these are the lists of things that we list down based on the question that we ask ourselves. So let's identify from this list what are the important elements. So to build a game, we need to have a Santa himself, of course, and he's being trapped. And then after that, I also need to make sure that this player or this sprite that I'm creating, it can walk, it can climb. And then there will also be a Krampus that can attack it, and whenever it got attacked, the life will reduce. And then we also need to have important things to determine when the games end. So when it will win when Santa found the Rudolph, and will lose when Santa killed by the Krampus. So as you can see, I didn't highlight the magic part because there's an additional power that we add to the Santa. For the prototype, we will just go with the basic functionality first, which is walking and climbing, and then I need to determine when the games end. So with that, I list out the item that I need to build. So first thing is I need to have a sprite Santa that can walk around inside a dungeon. And then the Santa can also climb. And the moment the Santa reaches the Rudolph, it will win the game. And then on the other hand, if a Santa caught by the little Krampus, the life will reduce. And what else? So Santa has 3 life. Alright, so based on this list, you can see that I need to build Santa sprite. I also need to build the Rudolph sprite, the Krampus sprite, and inside the map dungeon. And then I need to have a functionality to be able to move my Santa to walk around and to climb. And also when it touches Rudolph, it will win the game. If it got attacked by Krampus, the life will reduce. I might have more things that I need to build, but let's hold on to that because we want to get the basic to build up first before we add on more feature or elements to it. And in the event, if you're not sure what are the basic things that you need to start first, you can start from the player. It's not always the rule, but if you're not sure, then you can always start from the player. Start building the player first and whatever things that the player can do. Then you slowly add more elements to it. Now that I have my item listed down to build the prototype, now I can switch over to my MakeCode Arcade to start my coding. Alright, I'm at my MakeCode Arcade. I created a project called Santa Escape. So right now my workspace is empty. So let's go back to the list and see what we need to create. So let me go ahead and copy the list that I want to create. Coming back to the workspace, let me add a comment so that I remember what are the items that I need to create. I'm just going to put down a notes here inside the comment. So the first thing I need to create is to create a Santa that can walk around in the dungeon. So I'm going to go ahead to create a sprite first. And I'm going to call this sprite Santa. And it's a kind player. Let me give a look of the Santa. So like I say, let's not spend time to create a look for Santa yet. Let's just go ahead and either you draw a stickman or you can pick anything that's available in your gallery. So in my case, I just go ahead and create somebody kind of look like Santa. Not quite Santa, but it's good enough. We just want to test the functionality of the game first before we add more enhancement or before we polish it to be a lot nicer. Alright, so then I need to make sure you can walk around in a dungeon. So let's go ahead and create a dungeon that will be under the scene, and I'm going to utilize a tile map. And inside my tile map, remember the screen size, the width of the screen size is 10 and the height is 8. So I am creating a simple map just with one screen, and later on we can make the dungeons to be more complicated or bigger. So for now, I'm just going to create one screen, a simple screen, just to test out the functionality. So to create a dungeon, let me create a simple look for it by utilizing whatever block that is already have or whatever tile that's already have over here. I'm just going to lay down the ground of the dungeon. I'm going to make 2 layers because we want to test out the climbing functionality for the Santa as well. Let me delete this one. Climbing will need a stairs. For now, just utilize anything that looks like a stairs. Maybe this one here. Okay, kind of look like stairs, but that will do. And remember to add a wall as a ground for the dungeon. Alright, simple dungeon, quick and easy. That's what we need for now for the prototype. So coming back here, now I have my Santa floating on top. So let's add a gravity to it so that it will stand on the dungeon. That will be setting the acceleration for Santa. The acceleration would be acceleration Y and with a positive value. So let me just put down 100 for now. Okay, ta-da! Alright, and now I still can't move it. So let's add in a controller and say move Santa with buttons. And of course I can change the speed if I want to. Let's see how it looks first. Okay, alright, it's going left, going right. And if I find going too fast, I can slow it down. Let's say put it 30. And do I need the velocity Y? I need a Y only when I'm climbing the stairs. So in other times, I think we want to disable it. Okay, so now I can go left, I can go right. So the first thing that I listed here is done. So I'm just gonna mark that done. Then the second one is the Santa can climb. Not quite yet, let me try. So now if I add the stairs and I hit up, nothing happens because I already disabled the VY. Because in general, we don't want the Santa to move in y-axis. We want it to be able to move to the y-axis only when it reaches the stairs. So how do I make that effect? So I want the Santa to be able to climb when I hit up button. So let me go ahead and bring out the on A button press and change A to up button. So when up button is pressed, I want to check whether my sprite touches the stair. If it touches the stairs, then it will allow it to move upwards. So to do the check, we will use a logic and say if, I think there is so inside the scene there is a block that we can use to check if our sprite is at the stairs tile. So I think it's this one here, it's collision. So if the tile, let me drag it out, let me zoom this one out a little bit. So if the tile center of my Santa is a stairs, then we can set the velocity for my Santa to move upward. So Santa velocity upward will be Vy with a negative value. Let me just put down negative 30 for now. Let's try it out. Okay, at the stairs, and climb. Seems like it's able to move up. Oops, I kind of stuck there. It's not enough to go all the way up. Okay, I think the gravity might be too strong. Let me try to reduce the gravity. Let's say just put it 50. So you can either reduce the gravity or increase the velocity. That will give you a different effect. So you just need to try and error and see which one works better for you. So now I can climb up and can I reach the top? Not quite. Still not enough. Oh, there you go. Kind of working. Let's see. I think we can stick with that for now. Kind of challenging, but I think that might be the fun of the game. So you can see that my Santa is moving around the dungeon. If I press out, it won't go out. It will only go out when I touches the stairs. Okay, so my second item is completed here as well. Let me mark it as done. Then the next one is Santa reaches the Rudolph and win game. So let me create a new sprite for my Rudolph. I'm gonna go ahead and create a Rudolph that's gonna be new variable and say Rudolph. And Rudolph is not a player. Rudolph is not an enemy either. Let me just add a new kind. Let's call it friend. It's a new kind, so that will be friend. I can have many different friends. Now I only have Rudolph. Maybe along the game I can create more sprite and then I can have more friends. So let me go pick a look for my Rudolph. And as I mentioned, don't spend time to draw it out yet. We want to test out the game first. So let me just pick something that kind of looks like Rudolph. I'm gonna pick a dog here, just to represent Rudolph for now. And Rudolph should be located at the top of the dungeons or the mountain. So let me go back to my tile map and lay down a tile to indicate where I want to place my Rudolph. So let me go ahead and create a new tile and a simple tile that just put a marking. I'm just gonna put a marking like this. And with this tile, I'm gonna put it here. So I want my Rudolph to be here. And just hit done. Then I can utilize the place sprite on top of tile function that we learned in the previous chapter to place my Rudolph on top of that tile. Alright, so I have my Rudolph at the top of the dungeon. So let's go ahead and make the game win when Santa touches the Rudolph. That will be on player sprite overlap with the friend sprite. That will be friend, and then I'm gonna set the game as win. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, Let me try to get to my Rudolph. See if I can get onto the dungeon this time. It's get and ta-da! Okay, so the third item is working too. Then moving on, Santa caught by Krampus. So I need to create another sprite now. This will be an enemy sprite. And let me hit new variable and say Krampus. And Krampus will be a kind of enemy. Pick a look for Krampus. Let's see. Let me pick a bat. Hit done. And same thing, we need to tell the game on where to put our bat. So let me do the same thing as I did with my Rudolph. I'm gonna mark down something on the floor and lay this tile, the purple one is the enemy tile. So I'm gonna put it, say, over here, and then hit done. Then let me duplicate this block and say place my Krampus on top of the purple color tile. Okay, so now I have my Krampus here. Right now the bat is not moving, it's staying stationary over there. We want the bat to move right and left or back and forth, look like it's patrolling the dungeon to check whether the Santa is there. So to make your bat moving, we need to add a velocity for your bat. So go ahead and drag the set velocity for our Krampus. So set Krampus velocity. Right now the Krampus is on the left side, so let me move it to the right by doing a velocity X and say 50. Okay, you can see that my Krampus or bat is moving right now, but it stopped. It doesn't move back because we only set the velocity once. So it will only move it one time to the right, and once it hits the wall, it stops. So how do we ask the computer to say that, hey, if it hits the wall, let it go back to the left, and then when it hits the wall on this side, then it will go back to the right. Okay, in order to achieve that, we can utilize the on-game update to constantly check whether the bat has hit the wall. If it hits the wall, then we will set the velocity to a negative value so that it will move backward. And if it hits the wall again, it will move to the other direction. Okay, so to constantly check whether your bat is hitting the wall or not, we're going to utilize the on-game update. So let me go ahead and drag that block out. So there's two on-game update. I'm going to utilize the one with the seconds so that I can control how soon or how often we want to do the check. So let me drag this on-game update. Right now it's 500 milliseconds, and say that if the Krampus touches the wall, then I'm going to set the velocity to another direction. So if will be logic block again, I'm going to utilize this one here and say if my sprite is hitting wall. So the sprite here is Krampus. So if Krampus is hitting the wall on the, in this case, it's hitting the wall on the right side. So set it to right, and then I'm gonna change the velocity to a negative value. So let me copy that block and say set velocity to a negative 50. And on the other hand, if Krampus is hitting wall on the other side, which is left side, okay, then I'm gonna change the velocity to back to 50. Okay, I'm deleting the last else block. I don't need that. So let's see how it looks like. So the bat touches the wall, it bounces back. Okay, it touches the wall and then it goes back, right? Because I have if condition here and it check every half a second and see whether my Krampus has reaches the wall or hit the wall. So if it hit the wall, then it will go to the other direction. Okay, if you find it too fast, you can reduce or make it to 1 second so that it will stop for a while before it move back. And still a little bit fast. Let me change it to maybe 2 seconds. Okay, now it stopped for a while, then it go back. Okay, you can always adjust this according to how you want the bat move. Alright, now that my bat is moving and we want to fulfill the fourth items here, which is Santa can be caught by the little Krampus and then the life reduced. So if right now the Krampus touches the Santa, nothing happened. So let's add an event for it so that we will reduce the life. Let me move this one here, put all the similar block together. So on sprite of player overlap with enemy, then I'm gonna reduce the life by -1. Alright, the whole thing game over right away. What is happening? Let me go ahead and add life to the Santa first. Let me set the life, say, let me make it really big, like 10 life. Okay, and even with 10 life, your Santa dies right away the moment the Krampus touches it. Why is that? Okay, let me remove the life first. Let me show you what's happening. So because in this block we say that when the player overlap with the enemy, we want to minus the life by 1. So this block is constantly checking. As the bat is crossing the body of my player, it's actually more than a few milliseconds. So for this millisecond that is crossing the body, it's actually constantly reducing the life for the player. So we need to make sure that it will only reduce the life once, but not every milliseconds that the game is updating. So we need to add a pause in this event handling and say that wait for 2 seconds and wait for the Krampus to move past the body of the player, then only come back and check again whether the Krampus touches the player. So we do not want this block to keep constantly checking whether the Krampus is touching the player when it's actually crossing the player. Okay, so to do that, we can move the change life by 1 back and then add a pause for it. So let's say we're gonna pause for 2 seconds. That should be enough for the Krampus to touch the player and then move past the player. Okay, the Krampus touches the player, the life is minus by 1. Touches again, minus by 1. So you can see that the life didn't get reduced constantly anymore because we added a pause 2 seconds here to say that, hey, reduce 1 time and then wait for 2 seconds. By the time the 2 seconds ends, the Krampus has already moved beyond the body, so the system won't minus the life by 1 again. Okay, so you can see one more time, when it touches it, it reduced by 1, then wait for 2 seconds, don't check. Okay, now check again. Is it touching the body? Yes, it's touching. -1, wait for 2 seconds. Alright, so it gives the effect that we will only call change life by 1 time. Because we wait for 2 seconds, by the time the 2 seconds ends, the Krampus has already moved past the body. So when we actually try to check is the Krampus touches the player, the Krampus is no longer touching the player. But if you don't add a pause here, the computer will constantly check and notice that, hey, the Krampus is touching the player, so it will keep minus the life. Alright, so remember to add a pause and give it enough time for the Krampus to move beyond the body. Then only you come back and check whether the Krampus is touching the body or not. So I think we have completed all the items for the prototype. So let's try the game again. Let me refresh it. Oops, touches the bat. Let me move away from it and reach the dude off. There you go. So I have completed the very simple elements that I want in my game. And now I can move on to the next phase or the next round to further enhance my game by making a bigger dungeon and also create more Krampus to add more challenge to the game. Let's go back to the list and see what else we need to implement. So now we are going to enhance our game. This is the first round that we're going to enhance the game. So I'm going to call that round 1. And going through the list that we have just now, we notice that we haven't implement this part yet. We want the Santa to be able to apply magic when he will go invisible. Okay, so let's compile a list here. So I'm gonna, in my enhancement round 1, I'm gonna add element and say that Santa can go invisible and avoid the attack. And like I mentioned just now, we want to make a bigger dungeon. So I'm gonna complete the dungeon map and so add more Krampus to it. Okay, let me copy this list and put it into my workspace so that I don't forget. Let me change the comment. Alright, so now to let the Santa to go invisible, I can make it this way. How about when you press on B, then the Santa will go invisible. Alright, to do that, I can drag out the controller and say on B button press, to go invisible, let's change the image, make it look like it's invisible. In this case, I think it will be dark in color. So let's set my Santa to, let me copy this image here. I'm just gonna drag it and drop it in here. And then I'm gonna turn it to black color and left only 2 eyes. So let me change the eyes to become white, and then the entire body become black. Looks like it's invisible. I'm using a fill tool here to help me to fill things up quickly. Let's see how this looks. Let me hit done. Okay, if I hit B, alright, the whole thing will disappear. But the life is still reducing. So how do we make sure that when it's in invisible mode, the Krampus will not injure the Santa? So to control when and how I want to reduce the life of my player, there will be this block over here. This block says that when the Krampus overlap with the player, reduce the life by 1. So now I need to add a check in here to make sure that I will only reduce the life by 1 when the Santa is in a visible mode. So to add check, we always need to use the logic block and say if, and I'm gonna go around this block here and say that if the image of the Santa is a visible mode, then only I change the life by -1, and also pause for 2 seconds. So this condition here that I need to put in is to do a comparison of the image, to compare whether the image of my sprite Santa is it equals to this visible mode here. So to do a comparison for an image, we can utilize a block under the image category. If you scroll to the bottom, there's a compare and say that picture is equal to image. Okay, I'm gonna drag that out and put it inside here. And if you notice, condition is always in this shape, the hexagon shape. Okay, so if you go through the category and you see anything that is having a hexagon shape, that is the condition that you can use inside your if-else block. Okay, so in this case, my picture would be the sprite image. So I'm gonna do sprite category and drag out this sprite image. So the sprite is gonna be Santa. So if the Santa image is equals to the visible one, which is this one, so I'm gonna drag that out and drop it in here. Let me throw away these things that we don't need. And let me move this one down a bit. Okay, so if the Santa image is equals to the visible mode, then only change the life by 1. Okay, so now I'm visible mode. When Krampus touches it, the life is reduced. Let me go to invisible mode. And see, nothing happened to the player because this condition doesn't fulfill, so it won't reduce the life by 1. Okay, so let me try to move. And I want the Santa to go back to visible mode whenever I started to move. So let's add a controller and say on any button press. Okay, there's an option here to say any button. So it means that if I press up or down anything, as long as I move my player, then we want to set the image back to the visible one. So I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate all these things. So now I set the image to the visible one. So let's see. Okay, the life reduced as the bat or the Krampus touches it. Let's go into invisible mode. Okay, still working fine. And then let me try to move. Now I'm going back to visible again. And then the Krampus saw it, and then it will reduce the life by 1. Okay, then I can move up. And then I can go visible, invisible again. And then try to climb again, going back to visible mode. Okay, that's pretty cool. Alright, so now I have finished my first item here. Santa can go invisible and also avoid the attack. Now let's go ahead and complete our dungeon and also add more Krampus to it. To complete our dungeon, I'm going back to the tile map. So right now my map height is 8. Since I'm creating a dungeon that inside the mountain, so it can have multiple levels, so it will be a really high dungeons, a tall dungeon. So I'm gonna increase 8 to maybe 20. Okay, then I can start drawing my dungeon. I'm gonna utilize the same thing here, and just gonna go ahead and draw out multiple level. Let me leave a gap for the stairs, and let me erase those on top. Maybe I can create one level that's super tall like this. Let me erase the tile that where I place my enemy. I'm gonna leave the Rudolph up here, and I'm gonna connect all this level by the stairs. So where is the stairs? I think the stair is the last one here. Okay, let me put it here and then here. Okay, and then now I can add more tile for my compass. I can have my compass here, I can have another compass here, and I'm gonna lay another tile to place my compass here. I can also put it at the middle of the space here to add more challenge to the game. And finally, there's one more down here. Okay, so I have enlarged my dungeon map, and I've also added the tile to place my compass later on. And then I have my Rudolph here, which I didn't change. Oh yeah, I still need to put on the wall to make sure that my player can stand on top of the ground of the dungeon. So let me lay out the wall first. Okay, now this should be good. Let me go hit done. Now I should be having a large map. Okay. The screen is not following my sprite, so let me make sure that I have my camera following my sprite. Let me drag this one up here. Camera follow my center, because now that my map is bigger than the screen, so okay. Alright, but you can notice that my center is started somewhere in the middle of the screen, so we need to tell the game to place my center at the bottom of the dungeon. So let me go back to my tile map and create another marking. So let me put a red color one and say that use this tile, put it somewhere here where I'm gonna have my center. It's gonna appear here when the game starts. So let me hit done, and then remember to place your sprite on top of that tile that you just lay. Where did it go? Okay, there you go. Place my sprite, which is a center sprite, on top of that red marking tile. Okay, now that my center is appearing at the locations that we mark in the tile map. So let's try to explore the map that we just created and see how it looks. Let me try to climb, and let me go invisible so that I won't get injured by the compass. Having a hard time to get up. I think it's because the acceleration is really high. Let me reduce the gravity further. Remember at the beginning we were adjusting the acceleration and the velocity to see how difficult we want to make the climbing. Okay, let me try one more time. Let me try to go up. Okay, it's able to climb now. Okay, there's a compass here. Oops, I didn't connect to the stairs, so I can't go up. Let me go ahead and connect the stairs over here. Over here, bring it all the way down. Okay, let's try that one more time. That's silly. Okay, let me go back to the stairs again. Let me try to climb up. And alright, there you go. One more time. Go up. Okay, I think so far so good. I'm able to escape now, and then the game is winning. But there's an issue. If you notice that I only have one compass throughout the whole game. So for all these locations that I marked with a tile to place the compass, I don't see any compass here. The reason is because we only have created the compass once inside the onStart block. We need to let this block to run multiple times so that it will create a compass in all these locations. So in order to do that, we need to utilize the for loop that we learned in the previous chapter drag out the for loop and say that for all the compass tile that we have on the map, we want to create a compass on top of it. So I'm going to utilize this for loop, and let me place it inside the onStart first. And for this list here, this should be an array of an items. In this case, our item is the locations of all these compass tile. So good thing in MakeCode Arcade is under the scene category, there's already a block that will return us an array of a tile location. So we can use this array tile locations block directly, drag it and replace it on top of the list. So array of choose your tile, which is the compass tile that we mark with a purple bar. So for each of the elements inside this array, I want to create a compass and place a compass. So basically I want to move these 3 blocks inside this for loop. So I can move this for loop up here and then move the rest inside and move whatever that you don't need outside. The ultimate goal is to move these 3 blocks to be inside the for element. And of course, instead of place compass on top of random, now it should become another block, which is place my compass on top of this value. And I don't need this block anymore because I'm not going to place the compass on top of any random tile. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So this value is the locations of the tile, the compass tile that we have on the map. So the for loop will loop through all this location, and one by one it will create a compass and place the compass on top of the value, which is the tile, the compass tile, and then it will set the compass that we create with this velocity. Okay, so as you can see, all my compass appear on the map now, but there's a problem. If you notice the compass, it doesn't move back. This one stay and then only one of them move backward. That's because in our on-game update, we only ask one compass to move back and forth whenever it hits the wall. So inside this on-game update, we also need to add a for loop to say that for each of the compass, if they hit the wall, then you need to move back and forth. Okay, so let me come back down here and drag in the same for loop, the for element loop, and the list here will be the array of all the sprite enemy. So to get the array of sprite enemy, they will be inside the array, and at the bottom here you can see that there's a set sprite list to array of sprite of kind. So that's the one that we need. And so my sprite list, let me rename that to enemy list. If you forgot how for loops and array works, remember to check back on previous chapter. I think that will be chapter 6 where we talk about loop and array. Okay, then the kind of sprite here is gonna be enemy kind. So now that I have my array of sprite enemy, I'm gonna use that in my list. I'm gonna say for element, for each of the sprite inside my enemy array, I'm gonna check if my sprite is hitting the wall to the right. Okay, so I just moved the whole if condition block inside this for element, and instead of compass, we're gonna use this value, which is the each of the sprites of the compass. So let me replace the compass with the value. Let's replace all of them. So making sure that I am going through the array one by one and checking all the compass sprites to make sure all of them is able to go back and forth. Okay, so now as you can see, not just one compass, but all the compass that I have. So this enemy list contains all the compass. Okay, so seems like my game is doing well now. So let me try it out. Let me try to invisible again. Okay, let me quickly go upstairs and hide again. I don't think I hide that in time. Okay, let me climb, hold on. Can't stop that in time. So let me try to get the root off. Okay, managed to get it before the bat catch me. Okay, so I think my game works so far. And the next things, let me double check the list. Okay, so I managed to make my center go invisible, and I completed my dungeons, and I added more campus. Okay, so let's see what else we can do. So now I'm on my second round of enhancement. And of course, now I can go ahead and decorate my dungeon. I can change the ground because I'm inside the mountain. So maybe I can make the ground to be more muddy. And I can also change my stair to become a ladder because it makes more sense to have a ladder in the dungeon than the stair. And it also gives a better feel that the Santa is climbing on something. And now it's also the time for me to change how I want my sprites look. I'm gonna go ahead and draw Santa, Rudolph, and a Krampus for all my characters. And other than making my character and my dungeon looking more pretty, I can also add more effects to the game. For instance, when my Krampus touches Santa, right now it's pretty boring, nothing happened. So maybe I can add a camera shake to make it have a feeling that, hey, I got injured and the whole camera is shaking. So let me copy the list that I want to do and put it into my comment once again. And I'm gonna make this comment bigger. Alright, decorate my dungeon. So let me go inside my dungeon. Now my ground is in dark purple. I can create a new ground by hitting a new tile. And I'm gonna fill it up with brown color because I want to give it a muddy feeling. And we can draw some pattern for it. I can use a batch color like the brown. Just add some pattern to it. Hit done. So let me replace this tile on top of all the initial tile that I have by using a fill tool. So that will help me to replace the tile a lot quicker. Other than that, I also want to change how my stairs look. I want to change it to a ladder. So I'm gonna create my own ladder. Can use the dark brown to draw out the ladder. Okay, let me go ahead and draw a couple steps. And let me add a bit distance to them. Then maybe one more here. Okay, let me use another color for vertical line. Okay, the game is still running at the background. Let me quickly get this finished. Okay, I can add some shade to it by using different color. I think that will make it prettier. Something like that. Okay, done. So let me try to use this ladder, and I'm going to use a fill tool to fill up all the stairs, just to replace them. Okay, let's have a look. Ta-da! Alright, I think I like how the dungeons turns up. If you're not happy with a dungeon, you can always go back and change it again. Just go back to the tile map and click on the tile and hit modify or edit, and then you can change how it looks. So in my case, I'm happy with it, so I'm gonna go ahead and change the look for my Santa. So for my Santa, I'm gonna go ahead and erase everything. And then I'm gonna start drawing using my pencil tool. Let me draw out the eye first. And then I'm gonna add a beard around it using white color. Alright, I think it looks like Santa, so I'm gonna hit done and see how it turns up. Alright, looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and draw my Rudolph as well. Alright, so this is my version of Rudolph. Let me try to hit done and see how it looks. Okay, Rudolph is on top, so I need to navigate out. But as you can see, as I hit a button, my character changed back to what it was previously. So we need to make sure that we update all the old image by replacing it with a new image. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace the Santa on the old image. And let's see where else we need to change. So let me go ahead and replace all the image. So as you can see, we have an old staircase as well, so make sure that we need to change it back to the new one. And where else did we change? I think that should be it. And this one as well, the invisible image. This is based on the old image that I have. So let me go ahead and replace that with the Santa first. And let's paint this Santa dark in color. So let me change it this way. I'm just gonna paint everything black. Remember to leave the eyes white in color so that we can still see him in the dark. Okay, and the rest I'm just gonna fill it with black color. Okay, hit done. Okay, let's try out your game. Invisible. There you go. It's working, and yep, it took a damage just now. It's working too. It can climb up the stairs. Hi again. Alright, and then quickly climb up. Oops, I think it touches the bat. Let me go up, wait. Go up, wait. There you go, that's my Rudolph. Looking pretty cute up there. Cool. Okay, so my image has been changed, and one more image to change, which is my Krampus. So let me go ahead and change it. So instead of drawing it from scratch, we can also utilize this image directly by changing it. For Krampus, I would like to make it green, so I'm gonna fill it with green. And Krampus has a wing, so which is just good because this bat has a wing too. I'm gonna change the dark purple to dark green. I can use the pencil too. Let me go ahead and use fill too. I think that's faster. And then Krampus has horns, so I'm going to use a yellow color to draw a long horn from the hat. Something like that. Okay. And now I think that looks pretty good. So let me hit done and see how it looks. Ta-da! I think everything looks pretty good together. I have my green Krampus, and then I have a Santa, and then my dungeon, my ladder. I'm pretty happy with the new look now. So this is good. And one more thing we need to do, I think, when Krampus touches Santa, add an effect by shaking the camera. So we want to add an effect that is like a shocking effect when the Krampus touches the Santa. So the shocking effect or the shaking effect can be made by, I think there is a shake inside the scene. Let's say camera shake 4x4 pixel. So there you go. So drag it out and put it inside the change light -1. Make sure you put it before the pause because we don't want it to shake 2 seconds later. We want it to shake the moment the enemy touches the Santa. It's coming! Ta-da! Okay, so you got the effect. You know that the Santa has been hurt by the Krampus because now it's obvious. You can see it without need to monitoring the live anymore. Okay, another damage there. Okay, so that adds more fun to the game because you're adding more effects and more interaction to it. Alright, so we have gone through 2 rounds of enhancement together. Now, can you build your own by adding the 3rd round of enhancement? So here's some suggestion for you. You can add some candies in the dungeon for Santa to collect as he escapes. And of course, by collecting the candy, you can add score to the game. Then you can also add multiple levels to the game. So what we have right now is only one story where the Santa trying to escape from the dungeons, and at the end he will leave the dungeon together with the Rudolph. So you can add another level with a different story. So once they escape from the dungeon, you can have a Santa to explore another map, which can be a jungle. And Santa can explore the jungle with Rudolph and find their way out while facing others' obstacles. Okay? And please note that it's totally okay if you reach a time that you cannot implement the features that you want to add. Just keep that feature in mind. You can revisit it again at a time after you have learned how to do it. Alright, so that's all for our chapter-based learning series. We hope you are able to be more independent in creating your own game. And as usual, do not hesitate to let me know if you have any questions. So just leave us a message on Facebook and I will be able to help you. Also, I have a good news for all our MakeCode Arcade console user. We will have an online coaching session coming up end of this month. So if you purchased Tomato Cube MakeCode Arcade console before, stay tuned because we will announce the online coaching session through our Facebook. And during this coaching session, I will be there in the classroom to walk you through how to create a game, and you can ask me directly if you have any question. Alright, till then, thanks for following us through all 8 chapters. I hope you had fun, and don't forget to share with us the game that you have created. We have seen a few pretty cool ones, so we live to see more. Okay, goodbye and stay safe as usual.